The Anbernic RG Slide has the same chipset as the older models, the RG556, the Cube, the RG406V, the RG406H, which is a previous gen chipset. Those are older models, and now they've put that chipset in this brand new device. But I still did a little bit of testing anyway, and although with it not being a Snapdragon chipset, we are not going to get much Switch emulation, so you're not going to get your plumbing games going. But apart from that, what surprised me was 3DS. Now, 3DS is a two-screen setup, and we are able, because this is a 4.7-inch screen and it is a 4:3 aspect ratio, a two-screen setup is not too bad on here. I played a bit of Street Fighter, a few other things on 3DS, and it was really enjoyable. Obviously, you've got to reach your hand across to do things to touch the screen, but other than that, quite a nice experience, especially with these lovely controls. So sure, we've got a premium designed handheld with an older chipset. It's not a Snapdragon chipset, so we are crippled by the chipset. But listen, you're getting PS2 performance, like almost the entire catalog of PS2. You're getting GameCube, and with the screen and this layout, it's all sorts of retro. It's the PS2 Go of the past, made bigger and better for the future. So we're going to jump right into the sort of standout features of this handheld, and the first thing is just the slide function. I mean, if you're going to buy this, you're going to buy it because you think the slide is cool. It is very sturdy. It has a metal rail at the back here, and it is very noisy. And I do feel, I haven't done an intensive test yet, because I do feel that is quite a bit of force, and that force eventually, if you do that too much and too often, you're gonna break it, I think. And so I haven't done my usual sort of intensive test that I do on the hinges of these handhelds, because there are ways to use this, and I think if you do it this way, it's just going to last forever because it is very sturdy. I use it like this, or I open and close it like this. And there you kind of mitigate that bah that it does. And the overall design is so unique. It's like a chunky piece of tech from the early 2000s, just more chunky. And the design is somehow super retro while not actually directly copying anything apart from the MCon, which is a private project that looks eerily similar to this. You've got the option of white or black. I tend to think that the black is the way to go. It really does lend itself to that retro experience of the 90s. And then the white is like when they try to revive a model, much like, the Steamdeck bringing out a white model to give it a new life. And actually, Apple did the reverse. All their laptops were white, and then they brought out a black one, and everyone was like, ooh, it's that kind of thing, I think. The white is the other one. I think the black is the main one, in my opinion. Now, let's talk ergonomics, because this is an interesting one, because let's first talk about the controls in terms of ergonomics. Now, once it is open, it is a square handheld, which is very unique. We have not had a square handheld apart from, the foldable handhelds when they're closed. That is a square. But in terms of a handheld that is open and is a square, I can't think of anything. And so what that affords us is a very similar button layout to the Steamdeck. Now, if you look at the Steamdeck, let's get a good shot there. And this, you've got that side-by-side horizontal layout, because we now suddenly have a lot of horizontal real estate here. So in terms of controls, we really have got great ergonomics. I mean, look at the 556. The thing that plagues all of these handhelds is the crampedness. Like this is, we can do a little bit of a diagonal here, but we are limited by this vertical real estate on the side of the handheld. That's one of the downsides of a horizontal layout handheld. Even our vertical handhelds like this new Pro, we've got a very much a vertical controller layouts. You've got the Cube. You get the idea. Everything is limited by that vertical real estate on the controller side of a horizontal or a vertical handheld. Now we have a square handheld. I think you get the picture. We now have a horizontal controller layout, and it makes a massive, massive difference. And we'll talk about these controls now, but spoiler alert, they are very good. But that's where the ergonomic genius of this thing kind of ends, because the rest of it is, it's not a mess, but it is not ergonomic, like at all. You've got the candy bar rounded shape like they did on the RG405M, which was lovely. This was a great idea, like a very nice idea to take that square handheld and just give a little bit of a curve on the edges. Actually, picking up that 405M now, remembering like that was a lovely handheld, and I played a bit of PS2. Anyway, I digress. So now we do have that nice curve here. The plastic is very nice. It's got a round curve here. But the big problem is this metal plate, as soon as you open it, it becomes top heavy. And so when you're holding it, it flops down this way. And it is quite a bit of weight over there. I wish I could somehow show you, measure that weight that kind of pulls from that side. But here is the sort of real world experience. Tech Dweeb said to me, well, he puts his trigger fingers here and that balances it out. And it really does. Like, that is a great idea. But for me, that doesn't work. I think he has very long hands. So for me, this is a very uncomfortable playing position. My wife played Tetris and Dr. Mario on here for about an hour, and she said my fingers hurt like a bitch. And she was holding it like this or like that. So I said to her, how I'm holding it is I'm squeezing it between the sort of tops of my hands here, and then my fingers go there, and I play the handheld like that. So that is my way of kind of mitigating that. TechDweeb does the finger thing, I do this. Either way, it's not the most ergonomic. And then obviously because they've gone for this inline, these lovely inline triggers from Anbernic, we end up with a problem of it being, it's not, you don't even have triggers to grip onto. And so that's ergonomics. Ergonomics are not fantastic, but the button layout is probably one of the best button layouts we have on any of these retro handhelds. And then let's quickly talk about the controls and the buttons, because it is quite interesting because they've gone for these lovely joysticks. I did some testing of these joysticks. There's no cardinal snapping. They are the same joysticks that we get in the RG557, just recessed. And they are lovely. I think they've made a very good decision with these. The only thing is they are very sort of nipply. They're very small and wobbly. Like, you don't get a lot of range of motion like on something like the Steamdeck or whatever. I think I would say the Retroids are definitely nicer joysticks, but they are good and they're nice and recessed. Very nice design. And then the D-pad. The D-pad is a little bit bigger, I've figured out, to the other Anbernics, and it's got a lovely soft push to it. They have perfectly balanced the mushiness and firmness with these buttons. The action buttons are great. They're firm, but not too firm. You don't have to wear them in or anything. So in terms of these controls, we are good to go. We have pretty clicky shoulder buttons. There's a very digital click, which is not nice. Soft press digital click on the start and select. And then we do have these weird home and back Android buttons on the screen, which is weird, but it doesn't bother me. Like, it hasn't bothered me. It's just been part of the sort of engagement with the device. So that's not a problem. I put it alongside a few of the sort of OLED screens. And I mean, if you look here, if you look there where the blacks are, you are seeing very little distinction between the black and the black on the screen. And so we've got a bit of a OLED situation going here with this LED screen. I don't know where they got it, but it is lovely. Color rendition is good. It's obviously the 4x3, which is great for retro systems. Like I said, PS2 was great on here. I tested for PWM, which is mostly an issue on OLED screens, but it's not relegated to OLED screens only. And I was having a bit of eye strain, but I think it was my studio lights, because then when I played it around the house, I was not getting eye strain with this. And to you haters out there who keep saying it should have been 16:9, this is a 4x3 screen. It isn't a 16:9 screen. And if you want a 16:9 screen, get the Retro Pocket 5, because the Retro Pocket 5 is pretty much better in almost every way. There's not much to complain about the Retro Pocket 5, and this is a 16:9 screen. And when you put their 16:9, the 557, against the Retro Pocket 5, if we had to do a blow-by-blow comparison, the Retro Pocket 5 would probably come up better. The screen is a bit iffy on here it's quite a severe PWM effect on here. So they tried to compete with the RP5, and I don't think they quite succeeded. So with the Slide, however, they are now doing something completely different. They found a little corner in the markets, and they've fill that hole, and I think they have done a magical job with the screen. The screen is what sets this thing apart and makes it a buy because it is so unique. Like I said, 4x3 for PS2 gaming. It's also a 120 hertz screen, which means for your streaming, you can do a bit of 120 hertz. For your Android gaming, you can do 120 hertz. I did try a bit of black frame insertion. I don't know. I don't get it. It makes my games darker, but I don't see that sort of like glossy, fluid 120 hertz thing going. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I cannot see the difference. And it actually charges your battery. So I don't see the point of that. Well, in terms of brightness, it is very dim. You can go super dim. Like that is really, really dim. You know, in a pitch black dark bedroom, I don't think you're going to have any issues there. But then it also goes very, very bright. Like that is a super bright screen, and you're going to be able to play that in daylight. Obviously, direct sunlight's always going to be an issue on any screen. But this is a very well-rounded screen. One thing I did notice that is a little bit of an annoying thing is when you go vertical, and this will come up when I explain that I do like this for music, is you do have an off-center bezel there. So you've got a thin bezel here and a thick bezel there. And as soon as you close it and want to use it vertically for things like, you know, because this does look a lot like a very chunky cell phone, and now suddenly your screen is off center. So a little quirk, little miss there from Anbernic, but not a big deal because it is designed for that. And now I know what you're thinking. At $189, why not just get a refurbished Steamdeck or a second-hand Steamdeck? And to that I say, it's like telling someone who wants to buy an apartment in the city to rather buy a mansion in Eastern Europe. Both are very, very cool, but both have very, very different use cases. With the Steamdeck, just like the Eastern Europe mansion, you're going to get a lot of wide open space. But can you pop on over to the App Store and buy an app at 1 a.m. in the morning? Okay, that analogy doesn't quite. And shake test, this is an Anbernic, and Anbernic are quite sketchy when it comes to shake. Very, very little shake. They always don't dampen their shoulder buttons enough, so there's a tiny little bit of shake there, but this is one of the stiffest Anbernics I've ever seen. So now, this is a chonker, and so weight, mass, heaviness is going to be a problem for some people. So let's quickly just put that into numbers, and actually, let's get it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So this is 387 grams. That is very heavy for a little handheld. Retro Pocket 5, 287 grams. It's like 281 grams. It's over 100 grams heavier. Let's do the 557, which is an Anbernic device. Okay, 350 grams. So the 557 is heavier. Almost as heavy, but somehow with the ergonomics, it doesn't feel as heavy. We don't have that screen popping out because most of the weight, I think, is in the screen. Let's see how heavy Steamdeck is. Okay, 690 grams. All right, so it's not super heavy. It's the weight distribution that's an issue. This is my new theory. And then the beloved crotch time on the Aiden Walls channel. This is big, but the thing is, okay, so, I mean, obviously it is a chonker. I mean, that is just huge. That's what she said. But it is smooth. Smooth. It has smooth edges and inline shoulders. And so you're not going to have a problem shoving it in your pocket. But it is big. Also, they have introduced these sort of AI features, and technically, or according to them, if you enable it, you should be able to like swipe from here and do a game snap thing, but it hasn't worked for me yet. Maybe there's an update. I don't know, but it's a cool idea. So stay posted for that. It's not quite working properly yet, but it is a cool idea from Anbernic. And then while we're on user interface, just to quickly show you quick launcher. So you can now choose your launcher, your front end within the settings instead of having to sort of jippo it. So now this RG launcher home button will launch ESDE if I enable that now, which is great. So now press that. There we go. Very nice. So from that audio test, you can see it's not the best, but it is great for retro gaming. That high end is good quality high end. It's not crackled or muffled or distorted. And while we're on the topic of music, I did, I was like, oh yeah, I like these. And I usually say to people, these things can play music, that sort of thing. This was a nice music playing experience. Again, that offset bezel, this is where it becomes a bit of a pain because this is quite a nice music playing device. It works in the vertical mode, put it in my kitchen, play my music. I mean, obviously it's a chunker, but that's what, like around the house, it's quite a nice little device to use for these sort of things because it's got a bit of heft to it, and I actually hate using my phone for everything. I like having a piece of tech that does a thing. And I have a feeling that once I'm done with reviewing this and testing it and, do my 1 month later video, I am probably going to use this as a music player around the house. And so that's the other thing. The headphone jack, I tested these. I've got a pair of IEMs, got a pair of in-ear monitors, and I tested it. These were great. So, and as long as you aren't pushing like big drivers, it was fine. As soon as I used my studio headphones, it started to sound a bit strange, and it's because it's struggling to push the audio into those big drivers. So for very basic headphones, you're going to get good audio, even though this doesn't have a proper DAC in it. It's, it's just whatever's on the circuitry, that's what they're using. Now, battery life is great. They rate it on the websites for 6 hours, and I don't know if they just didn't have time to test it, but I think that is constant gameplay play at like optimum settings, like dimmest brightness, all that sort of thing. But if you are playing this off and on, it's going to last you for days, like even, 4 to 5 days. You put it on the Android sleep mode. It has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. It's going to last quite a while. But charging does seem to still be an issue. I have used all sorts of chargers with this. It does USB-C to USB-C. It works with my fast chargers, but they don't rate it for fast charging. So I don't know if this is going to get damaged by using fast chargers. To be safe, they recommend a 5 volt 2 amp charger, so I recommend just using a normal charger. By normal charger, I mean a normal charger. Now, connections, I set this up with 2 Bluetooth controllers, and I used the HDMI cable to my TV, and we played some Tetris with the family, like one-on-one, and it worked beautifully. It really worked nicely. I mean, all of these devices, if they've got an HDMI port and all that, it works fine. This one worked wonderfully. Just something about the format, being able to put it there. It's got a bit of heft to it, so the HDMI cable's not going to throw it off the table. It was really nice for that sort of thing. Now, it does not have Wi-Fi 6. It has Wi-Fi 5. It is going to be okay for streaming. This 4x3 screen is not going to be sort of conducive to streaming unless you've got old PC games on your Steam library or something like that, like maybe Half-Life or something. But it's not going to be conducive for streaming. The controls and everything are great for streaming. So, pros and cons. If you can get a good system working with that Wi-Fi 5, then fine. But I do find that Wi-Fi 6, I have a Wi-Fi 7 router in my house, and it does tend to work better than Wi-Fi 5. I also had issues streaming from my Steamdeck, but I didn't have issues streaming from my laptop. That was scaling the screen weirdly. Now, I don't know, there aren't big missteps here. We've got the balance of the handheld, the ergonomics. We've got the ergonomics of the actual grip. It would have been nice to have like a grip on here, but then you wouldn't have this lovely form factor. But these are far from major missteps. These are just little gripes and preferences, I would say. So if you are going for ergonomics, get the RG557, get a Steamdeck. Those are the ergonomic beasts of the industry. If you want to get performance, go for our AYN portal or go for a ROG LIX, something like that. Get a beast of a handheld. But if you're looking for something that's very retro, like uniquely retro, like nothing we have on the market, is 4x3 with a fantastic screen. If you like PS2, GameCube, and everything that came before that, tiny little bit of Switch emulation. There's not much that competes here apart from maybe Anbernic's own RG406H and the RG Cube. Those are two that could compete, but that has also a 4x3 screen, but a much smaller 4x3 screen on the 406H, and the Cube also has a square screen, which is interesting, but not quite as cool as this because this is a big 4x3 screen. It kind of is better than the Cube in that regard. And once again, Anbernic has found a little hole in the market and they've filled it so uniquely that there's nothing else that you can buy that can do or be what this thing is. And a lot of it has to do with the screen and the fact that there is nothing else in existence that can do this.